Please, don't board that plane. Sophie needs you now, Ethan.
I can't miss this meeting. We'll talk when I get back.
Sir, your daughter needs a hospital immediately. I strongly recommend postponing your trip. Your daughter should be evaluated by a doctor before she travels.
The meeting is more important.
Daddy!
He walked away from the little girl who called him Daddy, never imagining that the next decision would cost him everything. But what decision could possibly destroy a billionaire's entire world? Victoria Lawson dropped to her knees just as little Sophie crumpled onto the polished airport floor. "Sophie!" she cried, catching her daughter before her head struck the tiles. The 7-year-old's body burned with heat. Her tiny hands trembled violently, and her breathing came in shallow gasps. Mommy," Sophie whispered weakly. "I don't feel good." Victoria pressed the back of her hand against Sophie's forehead and froze. The fever was terrifying. "Ethan!" she shouted, panic flooding her voice. "Come here. Something's wrong with Sophie." Passengers turned to look as Ethan Sterling slowly walked over, annoyance already written across his face. He adjusted his expensive suit and glanced at his watch. "What is it now?" Victoria looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear. "Feel her forehead." He sighed impatiently. "Victoria, we're already running late. Please." Reluctantly, Ethan touched Sophie's forehead. His expression changed for only a second before he quickly looked away. "She probably caught a little flu." "A little flu?" Victoria's voice cracked. "She's burning up. We need to get her to a hospital right now." Before Ethan could answer, Charlotte Sterling strode toward them carrying her designer handbag. "What on earth is going on?" she demanded. Victoria looked at her hopefully. "Mother Charlotte, Sophie has a very high fever. We have to postpone the trip." Charlotte frowned as if she just heard something ridiculous. "Postpone? Do you know how important this flight is?" Victoria couldn't believe what she was hearing. "This is your granddaughter. And this meeting determines Ethan's future." Sophie's body suddenly jerked. She began coughing uncontrollably. Victoria hugged her tightly. "Somebody help us," she cried. Several nearby travelers rushed over. A young woman knelt beside Victoria. "I'm a nurse," she said calmly. "May I check her?" Victoria nodded immediately. The nurse examined Sophie for a few seconds before looking up, her expression serious. "This child needs emergency medical attention." Victoria felt her heart sink. "You hear that?" She looked at Ethan desperately. "Please, let's go." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "The boarding gate closes in 15 minutes. Victoria stared at him. "Our daughter could be dying." Charlotte folded her arms. "Oh, stop exaggerating." The nurse stood up. "Sir, with all due respect, your daughter needs a hospital." Ethan looked around as more people gathered. Whispers spread through the terminal. "This is embarrassing," Charlotte muttered. Victoria could hardly recognize the man she had married. "Ethan," her voice softened, "I've never begged you for anything." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm begging now. Please choose your daughter." For a brief moment, Ethan looked at Sophie. She reached out her tiny hand. "Daddy." The single word almost broke Victoria's heart. Instead of kneeling beside his daughter, Ethan took one step backward. "I can't miss this flight." Silence swept across the terminal. Victoria blinked. "What?" "My promotion depends on today's meeting." Victoria laughed in disbelief. "You're choosing a promotion over your own child? It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple." Charlotte stepped between them. "Victoria, enough." "No." Victoria's voice echoed through the terminal. "My daughter is sick." Charlotte lowered her voice. "People are watching." Victoria looked around. Dozens of passengers had stopped walking. Several phones were recording. She didn't care. "Let them watch." Charlotte's face hardened. "This emotional behavior is exactly why you'll never fit into our family." Victoria stood slowly while still holding Sophie. "You think this is about fitting into your family? It's about saving my daughter's life." An airport security officer approached. Is everything all right here? The nurse answered before anyone else could. No. Please call medical services immediately. The officer grabbed his radio. Medical team to gate 12. Urgent pediatric emergency. Sophie's eyes slowly closed. Mommy. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm sleepy. Victoria's heartbeat raced. No, baby. Stay awake. Talk to mommy. Sophie's head leaned against her shoulder. Victoria looked at Ethan with desperation she'd never known. If you walk away now. She struggled to finish the sentence. I'll never forget it. Ethan avoided her eyes. I'll send my driver after the meeting. Victoria couldn't believe it. You'll send a driver? Charlotte grabbed Ethan's arm. We're boarding. Then Victoria noticed someone standing a few meters away. A beautiful woman wearing designer sunglasses smiled warmly at Ethan. The smile wasn't friendly. It was familiar. Too familiar. The woman subtly waved. Ethan quickly looked away. Victoria felt something twist inside her. Who was she? Why did Ethan suddenly look nervous? Before she could ask, boarding was announced. This is the final boarding call for Flight 728 to New York. Charlotte smiled with satisfaction. Come, Ethan. Victoria stepped in front of him. If you leave. Her voice broke. Don't expect us to be here when you come back. Ethan hesitated. For 1 second. Only one. Then he gently moved Victoria aside. I have responsibilities. Victoria stared into his eyes. So does every father. Without another word, he walked toward the boarding gate. Charlotte followed proudly. The elegant woman in sunglasses joined them moments later. Victoria watched Ethan place his hand gently on the woman's back as they disappeared down the jet bridge. Her world shattered. The nurse whispered softly, I'm so sorry. Victoria couldn't even cry. She simply held Sophie tighter. The airport medical team finally arrived with a stretcher. What's her temperature? One medic asked. The nurse answered immediately. Very high. Possible seizure risk. Victoria climbed into the ambulance without hesitation. As the doors closed, she looked one last time toward the airplane. It was already pulling away from the gate. My baby, she whispered, kissing Sophie's forehead. You're going to be okay. Mommy won't leave you. The ambulance sped away with sirens blaring. Back inside the terminal, several passengers exchanged disturbed looks. One elderly man shook his head. I've never seen a father walk away from his sick child. A young traveler lowered her phone. I recorded everything. Should I post it? Her friend answered quietly. People deserve to know. Within an hour, the video was online. By evening, millions had watched a businessman abandon his feverish daughter inside an airport. Comments poured in. How could any father do this? That little girl's voice broke my heart. The mother deserves so much better. None of them knew the family's name yet, but they would soon. Hours later, doctors rushed Sophie into the emergency department. Victoria paced outside the treatment room, her hands shaking uncontrollably. A senior doctor finally stepped out. Are you Sophie's mother? Yes. We've managed to stabilize her for now. Victoria released a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. But the next few hours are critical. Her knees almost gave way. What caused this? We're still running tests. But I can tell you one thing. The doctor's expression grew grave. If she had arrived much later. He paused. The outcome could have been very different. Victoria closed her eyes as tears finally streamed down her face. Just then, her phone vibrated. The caller ID read, Ethan Sterling. She stared at the screen in silence as it continued ringing. Victoria let the phone ring until the screen went dark. A second later, it lit up again. Ethan Sterling calling. She pressed the power button and slipped the phone into her handbag without answering. Right now, only one person mattered. Her daughter. She walked back into Sophie's hospital room. The little girl lay motionless beneath a white blanket, an oxygen tube resting beneath her nose. Machines beeped steadily beside the bed. Victoria gently brushed a strand of hair away from Sophie's forehead. I'm here, sweetheart, she whispered. Mommy isn't going anywhere. Sophie's tiny fingers wrapped weakly around hers. I knew you'd stay. Victoria's heart broke. Always. A tear rolled down her cheek. Even if the whole world walks away, Mommy never will. Thousands of miles away, inside a luxurious hotel ballroom, Ethan adjusted his tie while executives applauded the keynote speaker. His phone vibrated again. Victoria, 18 missed calls. He frowned. Charlotte leaned closer. Is she still making a scene? I don't know. Charlotte scoffed. Turn your phone off. You didn't come all this way to babysit. Ethan hesitated. Then, he switched the phone off. Neither of them noticed Olivia Hart smiling from across the room. She slowly walked over, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. You look tense. Ethan forced a smile. Just family drama. Olivia linked her arm through his. Forget about them tonight. Charlotte watched with satisfaction. That's the kind of woman who understands successful men. Back at the hospital, the doctor returned with fresh test results. Mrs. Lawson? Victoria stood immediately. How is she? We've confirmed a severe viral infection that caused the dangerously high fever. Victoria swallowed hard. Will she recover? We're optimistic. The doctor smiled gently. But another 30 to 40 minutes without treatment. He stopped. You might have lost her. Victoria covered her mouth. The words hit harder than anything she had ever heard. Lost her. Because Ethan chose a meeting. Because Charlotte cared more about appearances. She looked through the glass window at Sophie sleeping peacefully. No title, she whispered. No promotion is worth a child's life. The next morning, Victoria hadn't slept. A nurse entered carrying breakfast. You should eat something. I'm not hungry. You'll collapse if you don't. Victoria managed a weak smile. I'll eat later. The nurse looked at her kindly. Your daughter is lucky. Victoria frowned. Lucky. She has someone who would fight the whole world for her. Victoria looked toward Sophie. I wish her father felt the same. Just then, someone knocked gently on the open door. An elderly gentleman wearing a navy suit stepped inside. His silver hair was neatly combed, and his eyes carried both wisdom and kindness. Victoria. She looked up in surprise. Mr. Bennett? Richard Bennett smiled warmly. It's been too long. Victoria immediately stood. I didn't know you were back in the city. I arrived last night. He looked toward Sophie. I came as soon as I heard. Victoria blinked. Heard from who? The airport. He sighed deeply. People have been talking. Victoria looked away. It was humiliating. No. Richard shook his head. It was heartbreaking. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Your father would have been proud of you. At the mention of her father, Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I miss him every day. So do I. Richard pulled a chair beside her. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, I've delayed this conversation for years. Victoria looked confused. What conversation? Richard reached inside his briefcase and removed a thick brown envelope. I promised Henry I would only give this to you when the time was right. Victoria stared at it. My father. Richard nodded. He knew one day you'd need to remember who you are. Victoria slowly opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents, old photographs, a brass pilot's wing pin, and a handwritten letter. Her hands trembled. She instantly recognized her father's handwriting. My dearest Victoria, if you're reading this, it means life has tested your strength again. Tears blurred her vision. Richard remained silent while she continued reading. I never wanted you to grow up believing wealth makes people important. Victoria wiped her eyes. I wanted you to become someone whose character speaks louder than money. She looked at Richard. I don't understand. He took a deep breath. Your father never sold Skirich Airlines. Victoria blinked. What? He transferred ownership. She frowned. To who? Richard smiled softly. To you. The room suddenly felt silent. Victoria stared at him as though she'd misheard. That's impossible. It isn't. I would have known. You were never meant to know until you were ready. Victoria shook her head repeatedly. No. Richard slid another document toward her. Read the signature. She looked down. There it was. Owner and majority shareholder, Victoria Lawson. Her breathing became uneven. I own Skirich Airlines? Richard nodded. You've owned it for 6 years. Victoria sat down heavily. This can't be real. It is. Then why? Because your father feared exactly what happened yesterday. Victoria looked confused. He believed people would respect your money before respecting your heart. Richard smiled sadly. He wanted the world to know Victoria Lawson before they knew the owner behind the name. Victoria looked back toward Sophie. I don't care about companies. I know. All I care about is my daughter. And that's exactly why your father chose you. At that same moment, inside Skirich headquarters, board members watched the viral airport video in complete silence. The recording clearly showed Ethan walking away. Sophie's weak voice echoed through the speakers. Daddy! Then, Ethan disappeared through the boarding gate. No one spoke for several moments. Finally, one director broke the silence. Wasn't Ethan expecting a promotion this week? Another director folded his arms. Not anymore. A third director sighed. If this reaches our shareholders, our reputation will suffer. The chairman's seat remained empty. Richard hadn't yet returned. But every board member knew one thing. Someone would have to answer for what they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Ethan finally landed. As soon as he turned his phone back on, it exploded with notifications. Missed calls, emails, messages. One headline immediately caught his attention. Business executive criticized after airport video goes viral. His stomach tightened. He tapped the article. The video began playing. There he was, walking away. Sophie's tiny voice calling, Daddy. The comments flooded beneath the clip. Heartless father. That poor little girl. He should lose his job. Ethan's face turned pale. Charlotte snatched the phone. Her confidence disappeared. This, she swallowed hard, is bad. Olivia glanced over Ethan's shoulder. Oh, she forced a laugh. I'm sure it'll blow over. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. For the first time, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since leaving the airport. Guilt. Real guilt. He immediately dialed Victoria. The call rang, and rang, then went to voicemail. He tried again. The same result. Charlotte folded her arms. She's ignoring you on purpose. Ethan stared out the hotel window. No, he whispered. I think she's done begging. Back at the hospital, Victoria looked at the brass pilot wings resting in her palm. She remembered the last thing her father had ever said to her. The greatest privilege isn't owning an airline, sweetheart. It's making sure no family is ever left without hope. She closed her fingers around the wings, then looked through the glass at Sophie. Something changed in her eyes. For years, she had hidden from the legacy her father left behind. Not anymore. She quietly looked at Richard. If I step into that company, Richard nodded. Everything will change. Victoria took a slow breath, then asked the question that would change every life connected to Skirich Airlines. Tell me everything my father wanted me to know. Richard leaned back in his chair and looked at Victoria with quiet pride. Your father built Skirich Airlines with one promise, he said. No passenger would ever be treated as more valuable than another simply because of money. Victoria lowered her eyes. He always believed kindness was first class. Richard smiled. Exactly. He slid one final document across the table. The board has been waiting for you. Victoria stared at it without touching it. I've been away from the company for years. The company doesn't need someone who knows every number. Richard's voice was calm. It needs someone who knows the value of people. Victoria looked toward Sophie's room. My daughter comes first. Richard nodded. And that's why you'll become the leader your father dreamed of. Just then, Sophie slowly opened her eyes. Mommy! Victoria rushed to her bedside. I'm here, sweetheart. Sophie's weak smile lit up the room. I had a scary dream. Victoria kissed her forehead. It's over now. Did Daddy come? The question pierced Victoria's heart. She forced a gentle smile. No, sweetheart. Sophie looked toward the door anyway. I kept waiting. Victoria wrapped her daughter in a careful hug. You'll never have to wait for Mommy. Sophie nodded sleepily. I know. 3 weeks later, Sophie had recovered enough to return home. Meanwhile, the airport video had spread across every major social media platform. Television stations replayed the heartbreaking footage. Commentators questioned how any father could abandon his critically ill child. Skirich Airline's public image began suffering. Employees whispered in hallways. Shareholders demanded answers. Inside corporate headquarters, Ethan straightened his expensive suit before entering the annual leadership gala. He smiled confidently. Tonight, he expected to become executive vice president. Charlotte adjusted her diamond necklace. I told you everything would settle down. Ethan nodded. People forget quickly. Olivia walked into the ballroom wearing a sparkling evening gown. She slipped her arm around Ethan. Congratulations in advance. Charlotte smiled proudly. Our family deserves this. None of them noticed several board members watching silently from across the room. Their smiles never reached their eyes. Outside the Grand Hotel, a sleek black limousine rolled to a stop. The driver opened the rear door. Victoria stepped out wearing an elegant midnight blue gown. She wore almost no jewelry except one small brass pilot's wing pinned near her heart. Richard waited beside the entrance. You look exactly like your father. Victoria smiled softly. I hope I can honor him. You already have. The ballroom doors opened. Conversations stopped. Guests turned. Charlotte frowned. What is she doing here? Olivia laughed quietly. Maybe she's here to beg Ethan to come home. Ethan smirked. I told you she'd realize she needs me. Victoria walked calmly past them without saying a word. That silence unsettled Ethan more than anger ever could. Richard escorted her to the front row. Board members immediately stood to greet her. Charlotte's smile faded. Why are they standing? Ethan suddenly felt uneasy. Moments later, the master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the ballroom fell silent. Tonight marks a new chapter in Skirich Airline's history. Applause echoed politely. We are honored to welcome the woman whose vision will guide this company into the future. Ethan smiled. This must be the announcement. Charlotte whispered, your promotion. Instead, Richard walked onto the stage. He looked directly at Victoria. Many believed our founder left no successor. The room became completely silent. They were mistaken. Richard extended his hand toward Victoria. Please welcome the rightful owner of Skirich Airlines. He paused. Our new chairwoman, Ms. Victoria Lawson. For several seconds, no one moved. Then every board member rose to their feet. Thunderous applause filled the ballroom. Guests followed. The standing ovation seemed endless. Ethan's smile disappeared. What? Charlotte grabbed his arm. No. Olivia slowly stepped backward. Victoria walked gracefully onto the stage. She accepted the microphone. Her voice was calm. My father taught me that leadership isn't measured by power. She looked around the ballroom. It's measured by responsibility. The applause grew louder. She continued. 3 weeks ago, my daughter became critically ill inside an airport terminal. The giant screen behind her suddenly lit up. The viral airport video began playing. Gasps spread across the room. Sophie's tiny voice echoed through the speakers. Daddy! Everyone watched Ethan turn his back and walk away. The video ended. Silence. Victoria looked directly at Ethan. A title means nothing to a man who forgets the people depending on him. Charlotte lowered her head. Victoria continued. A company built on trust cannot be represented by someone who abandoned his own child during her greatest moment of need. Richard stepped forward. Following a unanimous decision by the board, he opened an official folder. Ethan Sterling is removed from all executive responsibilities effective immediately. Security officers approached. Ethan finally found his voice. Victoria. She looked at him without anger. Only disappointment. You don't understand. My meeting. Victoria interrupted him. I understand perfectly. Her voice remained steady. You chose ambition over your daughter. Ethan's shoulders slumped. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Charlotte rushed toward Victoria. Please. Don't destroy this family. Victoria looked at her quietly. I didn't destroy it. You began destroying it the moment you taught your son that status mattered more than love. Charlotte couldn't answer. Olivia quietly slipped toward the exit. Ethan. She whispered. I can't be part of this. Without another word, she walked away. Ethan watched helplessly as the woman he risked everything for disappeared through the ballroom doors. Then security escorted him outside. The cameras waiting beyond the entrance captured everything. The next morning, every newspaper carried the same headline. Hidden airline owner removes executive after viral airport abandonment. Public opinion shifted overnight. People praised Victoria's courage. Skirich Airlines' reputation recovered. Customers returned. Employees felt hopeful again. 1 month later, Victoria stood before a crowd gathered inside a newly renovated aircraft hangar. Behind her rested a beautifully painted medical jet. Across its side were the words, the Henry Lawson Children's Airlift Program. Journalists filled the room. A reporter raised her hand. Chairwoman Lawson, why invest millions into this project? Victoria smiled. Because no parent should ever wonder whether help will arrive in time. The audience applauded. Another reporter asked, what inspired this mission? Victoria looked toward Sophie, who stood nearby holding Richard's hand. My daughter reminded me that every child deserves someone willing to fight for them. The applause became even louder. That evening, Victoria and Sophie walked through a peaceful park as the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. Sophie looked up. Mommy? Yes. What makes someone rich? Victoria smiled warmly. It isn't money. It isn't fancy airplanes. It isn't a big office. Sophie thought for a moment. Then what is it? Victoria squeezed her daughter's hand. Being the kind of person others feel safe with. The kind who stays when everyone else leaves. Sophie smiled. I want to be that person. Victoria kissed the top of her head. You already are. They continued walking together as laughter echoed from children playing nearby. For the first time in a long while, their future felt brighter than their past. And sometimes the greatest victories don't happen when someone loses power. They happen when someone finally discovers the strength they had all along. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories of courage, betrayal, and justice, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us, if you were Victoria, would you have forgiven Ethan after everything he did? We'd love to read your answer. Until the next story, remember, true wealth is never measured by status or success. It is measured by the love, integrity, and compassion you show when those who depend on you need you most.